One Village morning, 24 hours, zero heartburn.
Flights to major cities like New York, Chicago, and San Francisco and others could experience delays of up to 90 minutes during peak hours because we have fewer controllers on staff. Delays in these major airports will ripple across the country.
That was Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood Friday, warning how the looming mandatory cuts could affect the American people. The impact of sequestration could reach beyond the federal agencies and employees directly affected. Let's bring in now Gene Marks. He writes about small business for the New York Times and Forbes. He's also a business owner. Thanks so much for being with me this afternoon.
Thanks for having me on, Mara. It's good to see you.
You too. Now, we just heard Secretary LaHood talk about the effects on air travel if the cuts are imposed. How could that trickle down through the economy?
Well, when you talk about small businesses and how they're going to be impacted by the sequester cuts, you have to really kind of take into consideration that there are 20 to 30 million small businesses. So people that are doing work in certain areas, certain regions, or certain industries that might be affected by a government cutback, those people will be affected. But if you're your average small business owner, the pizza shop owner, the gas station guy, the accountant, the lawyer even, a lot of them aren't going to really be seeing a whole lot of effect of any kind of these sequester cuts coming up.
Well, let's take a look at what the White House had to say about that. They say, quote, the automatic cuts triggered by a sequester would reduce loan guarantees to small businesses by up to $902 million. What do you have to say about that effect?
It could reduce loan guarantees. That's exactly right. And so that depends upon those small businesses looking for loans. But also remember, we're still in a credit crunch right now. A lot of the small businesses that I know, that I write about, that a lot of my clients are still struggling to get loans because they still can't even meet some of the requirements, even under the federal loan guarantees. So, I guess what I'm saying is that most of the business owners I talk to, no one's panicking right now just because there is a 3 to 5% cut in spending for the federal government next year. Look, a lot of small business owners do that themselves in their own companies. They kind of get and understand what it's all about when there's a budget cut.
And in what ways do you think average Americans are going to feel the results of the sequester?
Also, it depends on where those average Americans are. If those Americans are working and living near, an Air Force base, or if they happen to work in an industry that's dealing a lot with, say, the military, they may feel a lot of cuts because, or a lot of pain because of this. But that will be gradual over the years. And again, when you're looking at the military, just using them as an example, they've doubled in size in their budget in the past 10 years. So cutting even 5% of the military's budget, come on, you and I both know there's probably a lot of waste and a lot of ways to find those savings. Again, just speaking from a small business owner standpoint, Mara, we get it when it comes time for budget cuts. We understand that sometimes that has to happen. And look, I don't think either you or me want to pass down the debts and deficits that the government is running out to our kids. And we know that something has to be done. And I think a lot of business owners that I talk to, they know that too.
But yet the sequester was set up as a deterrent to try to force both sides to the table to figure this thing out. Do you think the administration or Republicans in Congress are doing what they need to do to prevent these cuts from taking place?
Well, it's funny because the sequester came along because that super committee never came to any kind of an agreement to reduce the budget deficit, so that sequester automatically took place. But look what it's doing, though, Mara. It is actually reducing the deficit. Unless something happens, those cuts are going to take effect. And look, when I speak to other business owners like myself, and we see trillion-dollar deficits being racked up every year and a $16 trillion national debt and growing, it really concerns us very much. So, frankly, the fact that that super committee didn't come to an agreement and these automatic sequesters are now taking effect, it's actually some real action that's happening on to reduce this deficit. And I think a lot of small business owners are actually kind of happy to see that.
You were the first guest we've had that's seen the silver lining in the sequester. So you hold that
Doing
distinction.
my best.
Small business columnist Gene Marks, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Mara. Take care.
Well, look.